Welcome to Biztech's C-Suite Conversation Show. Our guest for today is Simon Dale. He's the Managing Director for Southeast Asia and Korea for Adobe Inc. Now, Adobe is a global leader in digital media and digital marketing solutions. Now, to tell us more about Adobe, Simon, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Ryan. Good to be back.
Now, Simon, I would love for you to give us a perspective of Adobe, because people know Adobe as PDF. You know, it's synonymous with that, but you've got a very rich history and a rich solution of products and services.
Yeah, thanks. We do. This year is actually Adobe's 40th anniversary of being in business. And it's been an amazing franchise, as you say, for PDFs that is very commonly known and used by many people, consumers and business, as well as some of our creative tools like Photoshop and Lightroom and Premiere Pro for video editing, which are hugely popular, particularly in this part of the world as well. And so many amateur and professional photographers and videographers use those technologies in business. And more, those tools, along with the other things that we've developed to help people to get their digital content out into these digital channels of engagement, have really taken off. And so we've all heard about digital transformation. We've all heard about e-commerce. What's actually happening is that any business, it doesn't matter what industry you're in, if you're B2C or you're B2B, you're going to have to use digital channels of engagement and digital channels to transact as well as communicate with your customers. And that's actually now a very large part of our business. We've assembled and created and built and integrated a collection of tools which take all that digital content from our other tools and help you to deliver it through websites, through mobile apps, to actually measure that engagement, like what are my customers doing, and then allow you to actually transact and do e-commerce transactions with those customers as well. And so it's a big extra dimension based on the foundation of us really knowing how to create digital experiences.
And so really you're alluding to that whole explosion of the creator economy as a new economy within itself.
Exactly.
As really fueling your explosion in this part of the world.
Yes, and in this part of the world, there are so many creators. I look after Korea, as you mentioned, and up there, the creative economy is actually a $10 billion export economy. It's a domestic, it's over $100 billion. And so here in Southeast Asia, we have the same across the region. We have great local influences in Malaysia, for example, like Rames. And up in Thailand, it's a massive Lightroom user base of people who do photography. And there's so much of this digital creativity going on across the whole region.
Now, break it down for us a little bit more, because I think a lot of our audience doesn't really understand this space, particularly in Southeast Asia. Walk us through some of the exciting things that are happening in the creator economy in Southeast Asia in particular, and Korea.
Yeah, and for the business people listening, I want to make it relevant for them as well, right? So it's not just creators as you would typically think of them, making nice images and creating things for TV or for streaming services. If you think about it in a business context, as I said, businesses that are dealing with consumers or other businesses are using digital channels of engagement. First of all, that might be your website, or it may be a mobile app, or it may be your e-commerce site, which is also usually a website or a mobile app as well, with an engine behind it. All of these require digital content, but they also need that content to be organized and managed and delivered at scale. And more these days, the thing that really matters is that your customers want to be treated as individuals. They want things to be personalized in this digital experience. And that's actually the expectation of everybody using digital apps and services. And so we've got a collection of technology which we've built over the past sort of 10 years to manage all of what we call this digital experience. And it starts with foundation elements, like, for example, UMobile in Malaysia uses our Adobe Experience Manager to power their website. And that allows them to have a really nice web experience to manage all of the digital assets that are required, the images, the videos, the documents, and so on, and to allow those customers to have a nice, comfortable, seamless, personalized experience on their website. We have other financial institutions in the region, for example, using our tools to personalize their experience, to really help customers to navigate through what their products might be, whether they're looking for a home loan or a credit card. And because the bank knows who they are, they can tailor it to what they know about that person's banking history, so the customer saves time and gets to the right product in the nearest possible time. And for a lot of retailers in the region, we do e-commerce. So we actually have a very large e-commerce engine that a lot of our customers use to do all of that e-commerce, which has exploded over the past 3 years. And all of these are proper business applications as part of everyone's digital transformation journey. And we've helped a lot of companies across a lot of industries to implement these and really engage with their customers and transact with them in this online world.
Now, Simon, what you've alluded to is really interesting, especially around the customer experience in the B2C space. So in particular, the examples that you mentioned, retail, telecommunications with you, mobile, and banks, customers' experiences and their expectations have gone up tremendously over the last 3 years, simply because of the pandemic and the fact that they didn't have physical touch points. Tell us about how you've helped some of your other customers perhaps up their game in this aspect.
Yeah, so I'd say the ticket to the dance, as we say, is really having a good quality digital channel of engagement, whether that is your main website or if it's some apps. They all need, first of all, great digital content that's relevant to an individual. So this relevance starts with not just creating that content, but matching that content to the personalized requirements of your customer. So you have to know who your customer is. You have to understand that customer. Now, the great thing about technology in this digital space is that you don't have to know who your customer is by name and identity. You can observe behavior in the digital world and tailor your offerings to groups of customers that look like they want something similar. So there's a lot of sort of crumbs of behavior that happen when you're interacting on your website or on your e-commerce site that you can pick up from people who haven't yet identified themselves, to look at the behavior and say, yeah, this looks like people are really interested in this product or service, so I'll make that more prominent. It's like, old style promotions in a store. You make sure you know what you're putting in front of people. It's the same thing in the digital world. You can observe this behavior. And then once somebody identifies themselves, say logs in and does a transaction with you, then of course you have a much richer profile which you can build upon, and you can then think about the opportunities to serve that customer better by cross-selling other opportunities, products, services, or by identifying needs that they haven't quite thought of yet and anticipating that, and again being personal. And we've done quite a bit of studies in the digital sphere of end users of all these things, and people more and more these days really appreciate brands that invest in the personalization of their digital experiences, that really take time to understand them, and only really deliver service and communications and even sales promotions to them that are relevant because they're thoughtful. And so this whole topic of personalization, you can go very, very deep. And that's what we help people to do, is to gather that data about their customers, to organize it in a way, and then use it to generate all of this business activity to improve their customer satisfaction and their sales.
Now, Simon, if I'm a CIO of a B2B business, now you've mentioned a lot of examples which are very B2C focused.
Yeah.
I'm having challenges. I'm a large company. I'm having challenges to improve my customer service and knowledge of my customers. How would Adobe help me as a B2B business?
Yeah, well, we actually have specific solutions for B2B as well. So one of the acquisitions we made a few years ago was Marketo, which is a B2B marketing tool, very specifically designed because it is different, right? And so the profile of a B2B customer, the behavior of a B2B customer, and so on. And even now, what we've started to realize is that the e-commerce behavior of a B2B customer is different. You know, they want to build a very large shopping cart, and they probably want that to be repeatable on a monthly or a quarterly basis and fulfilled automatically, and for them to get promotions and discounts that are very appropriate to the style that they buy. So we've actually got quite a big dimension of B2B business in both engagement as well as commerce for our customers. And it's very different. You still require those foundational elements of having very good digital content that's tailored and organized for the B2B motion of engagement and sales. But you also need to consider the real nuances of the communication to B2B buyers, their style and preferences, as well as then the e-commerce part as well. And both of those we've really started to build and deliver capabilities very specific to the B2B channels as well as the B2C.
Now, Simon, you alluded to studies that Adobe has done to understand customers better and so forth. And I want to make a reference to your recently released second edition of the Adobe Future of Time study. Walk us through the motivation behind the study and the methodology around it.
Yeah, so what we do is we do lots of surveys, and we've done previously, because we just talked a lot about B2C, right? We did a lot of studies of consumers and marketers to consumers. But because we also offer a lot of business solutions, business applications for increasing productivity and so on, we also thought, well, there's actually a need to look at the employees of organizations and what do they need? Because as we found out during COVID, one of the key things is you have to look after your employees with digital tools and technologies in order to be able to serve your customers digitally. And so it was very important. A lot of people made heavy investments in technology for their employees. And a lot of our technology, if you think about in larger organizations, intranets, as they used to be called, the internal websites for employees, are just as important for employees to find things to support them in their jobs or as individuals of the company quickly, and have those products and services for them very tailored and personalized to them to make their lives easier and make them feel valued as well. So it starts with a foundation of employee engagement and supporting that, because everybody knows, with happy and engaged employees, then you will have very happy and engaged customers. And so thinking of them as a key stakeholder group, this is where this Future of Time report came in to think, well, what do they need? What are they complaining about? What are they worried about? And how do we take care of that stakeholder group and support businesses through that? So the survey told us that a lot of employees, whilst they've appreciated the investments that organizations made during COVID, they still find that there are certain things that get in their way when it comes, and particularly in SMBs, it gets in the way of them serving their customers with a lack of investment in productivity and workflow tools. So there's a lot of processes that aren't quite joined up. There might be a little bit that's digitized, and then there's a little bit that isn't. One of the explosions that we've seen in the past couple of years in particular is for our document workflow and Adobe Sign technology to be able to remove paperwork and also to be able to transact digitally. And for example, we integrated this with Microsoft Teams so that you can do a virtual signing of a contract and you don't need to have an in-person meeting with somebody, which is very valuable for particularly financial institutions. There's also a sustainability angle there, because we're eliminating paperwork and we're eliminating paper archives, and it's actually a quantifiable saving in terms of paper and environmental costs. So there's various angles there that this survey is starting to help us to really engage with businesses across the region.
Now, one interesting thing that I noticed was that whole question in this study, there's a whole question around the fact that 70% of managers and employees concur that change and uncertainty has replaced stability in the workplace. So this is obviously a factor that is worrying a lot of people. What's your take on this And do you see the positive light around this?
Yeah, we actually do see it as a positive part. I mean, obviously, there's a lot of stuff going on around the world that is out of our control, but influences all of our businesses and daily lives. And one of the positive aspects of all of this is that we've seen that those companies that take that into consideration when they're engaging with their employees and think about it thoughtfully are getting very positive responses. And it's similar to studies we've done on how consumers trust brands. They appreciate empathy. They appreciate somebody being thoughtful about how they are dealt with as a consumer. And employees are no different. They appreciate their leaders and their business owners taking the time to think about how they as employees can be supported in their workplace and supported with a group of their colleagues, and also a sense of purpose. So a lot of organizations are starting to take far more seriously to communicate their sense of purpose. Why are we all here? Why are we working as a team to achieve outcomes for our customers? And that's something which everybody is certainly motivating and a key underpinning aspect of employee engagement.
Now, Simon, to add to that sense of purpose, I think one of the frequently misunderstood and undervalued aspect of employees having a sense of purpose is the fact that it's a great employee retention tool. When your employees are engaged and have a sense of purpose within the organization, higher salaries may not necessarily basically encourage them to move. I think that's been also there was a PwC global workforce survey that also alluded to that. Has that been your experience as well, Simon?
Oh, definitely, right? That you see that these environmental factors, for want of a better phrase, are super important, particularly when you're in difficult times. We've kind of through a crisis, but we're still in difficult times. And over communicating in the right way to bring people together with a focus on genuine concern and back to the word empathy for the lives of employees as they're trying to perform their job is super important. And this is why continued investment in the right digital technology at the right time and showing the benefits of that to employees is super important. You've talked about earlier where the business people used to rely a lot on the CIOs, just bringing tech to them. Well, our business people really need to not just understand the return on the investment from a monetary point of view, but what is the return on the engagement and the productivity, the happiness of employees, the job satisfaction. A lot of digital technology can remove friction in employees' workflows, which actually reduces their frustration with the job and improves their overall levels of engagement and sense of purpose with the organization.
Now, Simon, looking ahead to 2023, what's the crystal ball looking like for Adobe in terms of your strategies in Southeast Asia and Korea?
Yeah, well, I think we touched on it right at the beginning, right? This creator economy, and emphasizing again, it doesn't just mean the creative industries, because if you think about, and particularly across the types of people that create digital content, they might be in the marketing department, they might be in a small agency, they might be in the product department building a catalog that needs to be really excellent when it goes not in paper anymore, but on a catalog on the website or in a mobile app or even on the e-commerce site. And those things may used to have been separate. These days, they're common across all these digital channels of engagement. And so what we see is an explosion in the need for good quality digital content. And that still needs creative people to be matched with the business requirements. in whatever area it is, even manufacturing, financial services, across the public sector as well. For example, up in Thailand recently, we've seen increased focus on digitizing government services, and particularly citizen engagement is a focus of that, and making these digital services easier, making the government easier to do business with as a citizen and even as a business. So we see this as a great explosion of the demand for digital content and the tools to engage and transact with that digital content, which is good for our business portfolio.
Now, Simon, it's been a fascinating conversation. I really enjoyed our chat. But before we leave, any final thoughts you'd like to leave the audience with?
Well, there's one lovely kind of phrase I heard during the COVID crisis. We heard the cliche that digital transformation was accelerated significantly. But one of the things that I picked up was, I think it was somebody from Intel, quite a senior executive from Intel, said that there used to be strategy and digital strategy. Now there's just strategy. Digital is a non-negotiable, right? It's strategy, and it has to have digital incorporated in it to enable it. So I would really recommend for your viewers and listeners to think about that. Digital isn't a maybe or and. It's now a natural part of business, and it is a partnership between business leaders and the CIO. Business leaders need to become more savvy and understanding of the benefits and sponsors of that. But there still needs to be a governance function, and in particular, an integration function, because tech has to work with all the other tech and actually have a purpose to keep both the customer experience and the employee experience as seamless and as efficient as possible.
Simon, thank you very much for taking your time to be on the show.
Brian, thank you very much for having me.
Now, we've been speaking to Simon Dale, the Managing Director of Southeast Asia and Korea for Adobe Inc. I'm Brian Fernandez, and you've been watching and listening to Biztech's C-Suite Conversation Show. This interview will be on our website, www.biztech.asia, as well as our social media platforms. It'll also be on our syndication partners' TV stations, radio stations, and websites. Thanks a lot for tuning in.